Danger rarely announces itself. Sometimes it slips between the ordinary moments of a morning revealed only when everything you love begins to tremble. They say danger comes from outside, from strangers in the shadows, from the places we are warned about. But sometimes, danger crosses your doorstep disguised as trust, wearing the face of family, waiting for the moment your back is turned. This is the story of a mother who trusted the wrong hands long before she understood the cost of that trust. It is the story of the day innocence was betrayed. Before we continue, if stories that expose hidden danger and honor a mother's strength matter to you, please tap like. It helps this story reach others who need to hear it. Now let us begin. Some memories fade softly into the past. Then there are the ones that sit in the soul like a wound that never truly heals. For Amara, the story of how everything changed began on a normal Tuesday morning. A working day, a day where nothing unusual was supposed to happen. The sun had barely risen, casting a pale golden light across the apartment walls and carrying the faint chill of early morning air when the apartment filled with the soft rhythm of life waking up. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen. A light breeze came through the open window, carrying the distant sounds of cars heading to work and children waiting for school buses. On the living room couch sat Mama Rose, Amara's mother, her hands folded too tightly in her lap, her gaze fixed anywhere but on baby Nova. Her back straight and her expression unreadable. She had arrived 3 weeks earlier, insisting she wanted to help with baby Nova. Though a quiet uneasiness tugged at Amara each time she remembered how distant her mother had been throughout her own childhood. Nova was now 8 months old. She spoke fondly of wanting to spend time with her granddaughter. She said she came to relieve the young couple of the pressure of caring for a newborn while working full-time. She rarely visited, and when she did, she never stayed long enough to help. Even when Amara's first baby was born, Mama Rose visited only for a few hours before leaving abruptly, offering no real support, even though something about it sparked a quiet unease deep in her chest. Especially the way Mama Rose avoided meeting her eyes that morning. Amara wanted to believe that motherhood mellowed her own mother. She wanted to believe that Mama Rose had changed. After all, people softened with age, did not they? It was comforting to imagine that perhaps this was her mother's attempt to make up for years of distance and tension. In the small nursery, Nova babbled softly, the soft scent of baby powder lingering in the air as her tiny feet kicked against the mattress with playful rhythm, full of joyful abandon. Her smile lit up the room when she saw her mother walk in. Amara lifted her into her arms and pressed a gentle kiss against her soft cheek. "You make mornings worth waking up for," she whispered, wishing fleetingly that moments like this could last forever, unaware of how desperately she would cling to this memory in the days ahead. Nova responded with a squeal of excitement that melted her mother's heart instantly. Amara dressed her quickly and carried her to the living room before heading out to start her day. She had taken the day off to catch up on some errands, and her plan was to go to the grocery store first, before handling everything else on her list. The day was busy but manageable. Nothing felt out of the ordinary. David, her husband, had already left for work earlier. He kissed Amara goodbye, kissed Nova on her forehead, and nodded politely at Mama Rose as he left. He was polite, always polite, even when he felt uncomfortable. He trusted Amara enough to trust her decisions, even when it came to the complicated relationship she had with her mother. Mama Rose sat quietly, watching Nova with a calm expression that hid every emotion. She reached out her hands as Amara approached. "You can go now," she said. "I will take care of her." There was no warmth in her voice, no softness. Amara had learned long ago not to expect gentleness from her mother, so she took the words at face value and assumed that was as close to kindness as she would get. "She just ate," Amara said. "She may nap soon. If she does, just keep her near you." Mama Rose nodded without looking up, her expression closed. Amara hesitated for a moment. Something felt off. Maybe it was the strange quietness of the house. Maybe it was the stiffness in her mother's shoulders. Maybe it was simply the mother's instinct that warns before danger comes. But she pushed it down, telling herself she was overthinking. She picked up her purse and stepped outside. The grocery store was bright, cold, and filled with the everyday noise of life, painfully ordinary, compared to the quiet unease tightening inside Amara's chest. Amara moved through the aisles, picking up Nova's formula, laundry detergent, vegetables for dinner, and a few snacks she hoped David would like. She tried to relax her shoulders, but a faint tremor ran through them, as if her body sensed something her mind was not yet ready to confront. Tried to enjoy the quiet moment to herself, but even in the middle of the store, something in her chest felt tight, a restless feeling. She did not know why. When she reached into her purse to take out her wallet, a small slip of paper brushed against her fingers. She froze. The receipt for the sweater, a gift she had bought on impulse, hoping it might soften the distance between them even a little, though Mama Rose had only nodded stiffly when she received it. It needed to be exchanged. The return policy was strict, and she regretted not bringing it with her. She shook her head and gave a quiet laugh at her forgetfulness. The store was not far from home, only about 10 minutes away. She could run back quickly, grab the sweater, and return before the lines grew too long. She paid for her items, packed them into the car, and headed home. As she drove, the strange tightness in her chest became stronger, her jaw tightening as her breath grew shallow and her pulse thudded loudly in her ears. Like a warning she could not understand, she turned into her street. Everything looked normal. The apartment buildings, the parked cars, a neighbor sweeping her porch. Nothing pointed to disaster. The air seemed to still for a split second, as if the world itself was holding its breath. But then she heard it, a sound that froze her in place, a cry, sharp, urgent, unlike anything she had ever heard from her daughter. It cut through the quiet morning and sent her heart racing. It was Nova. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Amara's heart slammed against her ribs. She jumped out of the car before it even fully stopped and ran toward the apartment. Her keys slipped in her hand. She fumbled, but managed to push open the door. What she saw inside stole the breath from her lungs, her stomach plunging as a cold wave of disbelief washed through her. Someone was sitting on the couch, hunched over. On the coffee table were several household items laid out in a way that made Amara's stomach drop. Things that clearly did not belong together. Things no one should be using near a child. Nova lay on the couch nearby, her blanket rumpled beneath her, her little body stiff with distress. The sight of her daughter's discomfort, the trembling in her limbs, her flushed face, the way she curled into herself, sent a cold wave of alarm through Amara so quickly it stole the breath from her chest. Nova's cry was not just a cry. It was a signal, a plea. Something was terribly, unmistakably wrong. Amara froze, words failing her, as the shock settled in. Her mind struggled to understand the scene before her. The strange arrangement of items on the table, the tense stiffness in her mother's posture, and the unmistakable distress in her baby's cries. Her breath caught in her throat. "Mama," she whispered, her voice thin and breaking. What are you doing?" Mama Rose looked up, startled, her expression shifting with something Amara could not fully read. "I was only trying to help her," she said calmly. "This is what our people have done for generations." The words landed heavily, chilling Amara to the bone. She did not need details. The intent alone made her knees weaken. Nova's cry sharpened again, urgent and frightened. In that instant, Amara's fear hardened into resolve, and something inside her snapped. She rushed forward, scooping her daughter into her arms, her movements fast and instinctive. Nova trembled against her, her face flushed with distress, her fingers curling tightly into Amara's shirt, as if desperate for safety. "How could you?" Amara choked out, her voice shaking with disbelief and terror. "She's my baby." Mama Rose's expression tightened, not with remorse, but with irritation. "Yalian mothers do not understand anything," she said. I was doing what is best. A girl must be shaped properly before the world ruins her. Shaped properly? Amara repeated, incredulous. By forcing something on her, by hurting her? She is 8 months old. Mama Rose sighed as if inconvenienced. You should be thanking me. I was willing to do what you were too weak to do. I stepped in as her grandmother. Those words landed with brutal force, and the room seemed to spin around Mara. Her chest tightened as she tried to dial emergency services with shaking hands. The ambulance arrived quickly. For a suspended moment, the world seemed to tilt. Sounds dulled, time stretched, and Amara felt herself moving on instinct alone. The paramedics took Nova from Amara's arms with calm, steady urgency. They moved with practiced precision, checking her breathing, assessing her condition, and preparing her for immediate transport. Amara followed them into the ambulance, her hands trembling, her thoughts scattered. All she could see was Nova's distressed little face. All she could hear was the echo of her cry. At the hospital, everything blurred into motion. Staff hurried through bright hallways, voices layered over one another as nurses called for equipment and doctors coordinated care. David arrived breathless, fear etched across his features as he searched for his wife and child. When he finally saw Nova, small, fragile, overwhelmed by the moment, something inside him seemed to stop. His expression crumpled. "What happened?" he whispered. Amara's throat tightened. She tried to speak, but no words formed at first. Finally, she managed, "She did this. My mother did this." David pulled her into his arms, holding her as she shook. The doors to the treatment room closed, leaving them in a hallway that suddenly felt too quiet, too still. Time seemed suspended, every second heavy, every breath unsteady. Inside that silence, something shifted inside Amara. Her trust fractured, her restraint giving way to instinct. Though she did not yet understand why, what she discovered next would be even worse than what she had already witnessed. This was only the beginning. If you are still here with Amara, type listening in the comments. Let us continue with the story. The hallway outside the surgical room felt colder than any place Amara had ever stood, the chill seeping into her bones as if echoing the fear tightening inside her chest. The bright fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above her, but she barely heard them. Her mind replayed the same moments again and again, each one blurring into the next. Nova's frightened movements, her distressed cries, and the unsettling arrangement of items on the table. The memory of her mother leaning over her granddaughter, with disturbing calmness, sent a cold wave of dread through Amara. Nova's visible distress, the scattered tools, her mother's steady, deliberate posture, as if she believed she was doing something acceptable. David kept one arm around Amara's shoulders, though his own hands were unsteady. His eyes stayed fixed on the double doors where Nova had disappeared, fear carving deep lines across his face. Minutes dragged by like hours, each one tightening the knot in Amara's stomach, until breathing felt difficult, her hands cold and her jaw aching from how tightly she held it. Nurses hurried past them, pushing equipment and calling instructions, but no one came with news. Each passing second stretched thinner than the last. She clasped her hands together, trying to still their trembling. She could still feel Nova clinging to her, still hear that desperate cry echoing in her chest. David whispered, "She will be okay. She has to be." But even he sounded unsure. Amara stared at the floor. "I should never have left her. I should have listened to my instincts. Something felt wrong. I knew it. I knew it." David turned toward her. "Amara, this is not your fault." She did not look at him. She could not. The guilt pressed against her chest like a weight she could not push off. At last, the doors swung open. A surgeon stepped out, mask lowered, his expression steady. Amara felt her knees weaken beneath her. "She is stable," he said gently. The words washed over her like warm air after a long winter. She released a shaky breath she had not realized she would been holding. She did experience an injury. The doctor continued carefully, but it was addressed quickly. She is resting now and will need a little time to recover, but we expect a full healing." Amara pressed both hands to her mouth, tears spilling as relief broke through her fear. David whispered, "Thank God, and thank you, doctor." The doctor's tone softened. "It appears someone attempted something harmful but stopped before serious damage occurred. Based on the extent of the injury, timing made a difference." Amara closed her eyes, the weight of that truth settling heavily in her chest. Had she arrived even a moment later? She did not let herself finish the thought. "May we see her?" David asked. "Yes, she is being monitored, but you can go in." They followed him into the recovery room. Nova lay on a tiny hospital bed, wrapped in a soft blanket, her breathing steady. Her cheeks were still damp from earlier tears, but her expression had softened. Amara leaned over her daughter, brushing a trembling hand over her hair. "Mommy's here," she whispered. "I am right here." Nova stirred gently, but did not cry. Relief, grief, anger, and horror surged through Amara all at once, a tide too heavy to sort. David kissed Nova's forehead, then turned toward Mara. "I am calling the police." She nodded silently. Only an hour later, a detective arrived at the hospital. His presence filled the small consultation room with quiet authority. He took notes as Amara recounted the events, every detail she could bring herself to speak, her voice trembling. "And you found your mother attempting something harmful toward the child?" he asked. "Yes." Her voice cracked. "She said she was trying to perform a traditional act." The detective's expression hardened. "This is a serious criminal matter. We will open an emergency case file immediately. Once the medical documentation and paperwork are finalized, officers will take her into custody." David's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. His hand found Amara's beneath the table, grounding her. After giving her full statement, Amara returned to Nova's bedside. She did not let go of her daughter for the rest of the day. Not until the nurses insisted she rest a little. Tomorrow, she told herself, she would go home tomorrow just to get supplies and come back. She did not want to leave Nova's side for a single second, but reality demanded it. The next morning, David stayed with Nova, while Amara drove home briefly to pick up clothes, toiletries, and Nova's favorite stuffed rabbit. She still was not prepared for what waited inside the apartment. Mama Rose sat on the couch as if nothing had happened, arms folded tightly across her chest, eyes sharp and unrepentant. Amara's stomach turned. "You should not be here," she said quietly. Mama Rose shrugged. "Your husband let me stay the night. I told him I did not do anything wrong. I only meant to help the child." Amara froze. "Help her," she repeated softly, her voice unsteady, her pulse thudding in her ears. "By doing something that frightened her?" "It is tradition," Mama Rose said, her tone firm, almost offended. "Girls must be shaped properly before the world ruins them. I did what any responsible mother or grandmother would do." Amara stared at her, disbelief rising like a wave. At the hospital she had been numb, crushed beneath fear and shock. But here, now, something else began to take shape. A burning, a tautening, a rising fury, unlike anything she had ever felt. "Mama," she said slowly, "you hurt my baby. You scared her. You caused her pain." Mama Rose waved her hand dismissively. "She will be fine. They always are. You young women fuss too much. This does not harm children." Those words made Mara's chest constrict. "She will be fine. She will survive." So casual, so cold. Then Mama Rose added, almost with irritation, "Besides, this is not even the first time I have had to correct your failures as a mother. You refused to do what was necessary the first time, and look how that ended." Amara's breath hitched, a single jagged breath slicing through her as her mind recoiled from the implication she feared she had heard. "What was necessary? What are you talking about?" Mama Rose leaned forward, eyes narrowing with a coldness that made Amara's skin crawl. "If I had been allowed to calm your first child properly, maybe he would still be alive." The room froze. Amara blinked slowly, not understanding at first. My first child? Mama Rose lifted her chin defiantly. That boy was too stubborn, too spirited. Children like that must be calmed. I gave him something meant to settle him, and afterward, he grew weak. Silence. Dead, suffocating silence. It all clicked at once. The sudden, mysterious passing of her firstborn, no clear explanation. Doctors baffled. Amara felt the world tilt. Some truths do not just break the heart, they shatter the world you thought you lived in. So you are the reason my son is gone, she whispered. Mama Rose scoffed. He was destined to go. I only. But she never finished. Something inside Amara broke in a way she had never felt before. A sharp, overwhelming rush of grief and clarities swept through her, blurring her surroundings into a haze. She did not remember moving, only the sensation of her hands tightening around something on the kitchen counter. Something solid, something she did not fully register. Her footsteps were slow but trembling as she walked back toward her mother. Mama Rose's eyes widened slightly. What are you doing? Amara did not answer. The next moments unfolded in the blur. A burst of motion, a cry of shock, the sound of something falling. It was as if the room itself recoiled, the air shifting with a tense, electric weight. You are the reason my son is gone, Amara cried out, her voice cracking under years of buried agony. You tried to harm my daughter. You do not get to call that love. Mama Rose shouted back, her voice sharp and defensive, the two women's pain colliding in a storm that had been building for decades. Furniture scraped. Something toppled. A kettle hissed angrily on the stove behind them, steam filling the room with a sharp, metallic heat. Amara stood frozen in the center of the kitchen, her chest heaving, her hands trembling at her sides, horrified by how far grief had pushed her, terrified of the person she had just discovered she was capable of becoming. A distant scream from outside, a neighbor calling out, pierced through the fog. Moments later, the police were at the door. A neighbor shouted from outside. Doors opened. Someone called the police. When the officers entered the apartment, the room itself seemed to collapse into noise and motion. Raised voices echoed off the walls. Neighbors murmured outside. Steam still hung faintly in the air, and overturned furniture bore silent witness to what grief had unleashed. Amara felt the weight of consequence settle over her, heavy and unavoidable. The cost of the truth weighed heavily on her heart, intertwined with a love fierce enough to survive what came next. The officers' shouts seemed to come from far away, muffled and distorted. Amara barely heard them. Her body moved when commanded. Her wrists hid behind her back, the cold click of handcuffs closing around her skin. But her mind stayed frozen in the moment her mother spoke the words that shattered her world. I gave him something meant to settle him. And afterward, he grew weak. Those words lived in her bones now. When the officers led her outside, she saw David sprinting toward the building, his face pale, his eyes wide with terror. He froze when he saw the flashing lights, the officers moving quickly, the chaotic scene inside, then his gaze locked on Amara. Amara, he breathed. He tried to step toward her, but the officers held him back. Even so, he moved closer, voice trembling. I am here. I am not leaving. Her voice cracked. David, she gave our son something. She tried to kill our daughter. I could not. I know, he said gently. I believe you. You saved our daughter. I will handle everything. You are not alone. But those words held her together as she was placed in the patrol car. The truth merged not all at once, but in pieces, gathered quietly, carefully, and without mercy. A numb heaviness settled over Amara as the investigation began, her mind drifting in and out of clarity. She could feel her heartbeat in her throat, each pulse reminding her that every second mattered, every discovery could change everything. A part of her wanted to run, another wanted to collapse, but she stayed suspended in a haze of dread and hope, waiting for the truth to take shape around her. While Amara was being processed, detectives began reviewing the apartment. They found the baby monitors, the small cameras mounted in the living room and nursery, a safety measure David had installed after Nova was born. The footage revealed far more than anyone expected. It showed Mama Rose preparing items she had gathered. It showed her placing Nova on the couch. It showed her beginning something she had no right to do. And it captured the moment when Nova cried out, a sound so sharp and sudden that even the detective reviewing the footage paused. Another recording, taken the following morning, showed Mama Rose sitting stiffly, speaking with calm arrogance about discipline and tradition, her face unmoved and unapologetic. Detectives then uncovered financial information, details Amara had never known. The words hit Amara like a physical blow when she learned of it. Even from inside the precinct's holding area, the officer's quiet explanation reached her with a strange, echoing clarity. Her mother had not acted from culture or tradition. She had acted from resentment. The petty, festering bitterness over a one-time reduction of allowance directed at a newborn child. Amara's breath had caught in her throat. A cold sickness spread through her chest as she realized the cruelty had not been sudden or impulsive. It had been brewing, hidden, growing in the dark. And all this time, she had blamed herself for not being enough of a daughter when the truth was that her mother's love had never been real at all. A single month, just one, when Amara and David had reduced Mama Rosa's allowance by less than 1% after their first son was born. She had complained to relatives that the newborn was taking her comfort, that she would not let her lifestyle suffer because of a baby. It revealed a resentment darker than anyone imagined. And now, the evidence proved it. If this moment affected you, share one word in the comments that captures what you are feeling. Later that evening, Amara's siblings arrived at the precinct. At the sight of them, something in Amara loosened for the first time since the nightmare began, a fragile mix of relief, grief, and the aching knowledge that she was no longer alone. They stood behind the glass of the holding room window, their faces pale with grief, the faint hum of the overhead lights, and the sterile scent of disinfectant sinking into Amara's memory. Her sister's fingertips, pressed to the glass, left a small fogged imprint, the kind of gesture that reminded Amara of childhood nights when they whispered secrets under a shared blanket. Her sister placed a hand against the glass. "We never knew," she whispered. "We kept our distance from her because she was harsh and unpredictable. But we did not know she was capable of this. We should have protected you more." Amara lowered her head. For the first time, she understood. They had not abandoned her. They had been surviving Mama Rose too. Court proceedings moved swiftly. The video evidence, the medical assessments, and Mama Rose's own statements painted a devastating picture. Mama Rose pleaded not guilty. She insisted she acted out of tradition. The court rejected every argument. She was sentenced to 12 years in prison for several severe offenses, including attempting an unlawful procedure on a minor, endangering a child's well-being, and actions that were found to have contributed to the tragic loss of Amara's first child. As the judge read the verdict, Mama Rose turned in her seat, looking for Amara as if expecting forgiveness she had never earned. Amara did not look at her, not once. Considering the extreme emotional distress, trauma, and provocation she endured, Amara received a 3-year sentence with eligibility for early release. David held her hands through the bars before she was taken away. "I will wait for you," he whispered. "You survived the worst. You will survive this too. I love you, and I am not going anywhere." Grief may break a person, but betrayal reshapes them into someone they never planned to become. Prison reshaped Amara quietly. In the long stillness of each day, something firm took root inside her. Not bitterness, but steadiness. She learned to breathe through the hours, to hold herself together, to become someone who would endure. 6 months in, a confrontation with other inmates left her injured, a wound that healed into a scar she would carry for life. Afterward, she spent time in isolation, officially for her protection. In the silence of that small room, she taped Nova's hospital bracelet above her bed. "I am coming back to you," she whispered each night. Those words anchored her. After 18 months, due to good behavior, Amara was released early. David was waiting outside the gates. He walked straight to her, cupped her scarred cheek, and kissed it softly. "This is the mark of a warrior," he whispered. "You protected our children. You honored our son. Nothing about you is broken. You are my heart." She broke down in his arms. At home, Nova, now a toddler, ran to her and wrapped her small arms around her waist. "Mama," she whispered, crying softly. Amara held her tightly, feeling life return to her bones. A life reclaimed to hate. David had resigned from his corporate accounting job 2 weeks after Amara's sentencing. He refused to put Nova in daycare, not after everything that happened. Instead, he built a home-based bookkeeping and tax service, working from a small desk near the kitchen so he could always watch their daughter. Amara also revived a small craft business she had once dreamed of creating, making soft baby blankets, hand-stitched swaddles, personalized name pillows, and a few other gentle items she once wished someone had made for her own children. She sold them online, and orders began to grow steadily. Soon, neighbors began approaching her, asking if she could watch their children while they worked. They trusted her deeply, believing she would protect their little ones as fiercely as she had protected her own. And she did. At night, after the children slept, she sat beside David, helping organize client books and prepare reports. They were not wealthy, but they were steady, building a life shaped by peace, teamwork, and quiet, ordinary joy. And in quiet moments, rocking a neighbor's child to sleep, folding one of her handmade blankets, watching David work at his desk, Amara found herself whispering a truth she had come to understand. Safety was not the absence of danger, but the presence of people who chose to love fiercely and consistently. It was a life built with intention, not fear, a life rebuilt, not repaired. 7 years after her release, Amara gave birth to twin boys. Now toddlers, they stacked brightly colored blocks on the living room floor, while Nova guided them with patient encouragement. Amara watched them, love filling every corner of her heart. Amara never covered the scar on her cheek. Some saw it as a mark of shame. She saw it as a vow, a reminder of the night she refused to let evil win, symbol of the mother she became, a testament to survival. It was not ugliness. It was truth. Mama Rose passed away in prison after 6 years. Amara never visited, never wrote, never asked for updates. Some wounds close only by being left behind. One afternoon, David wrapped his arms around her in the kitchen and kissed her scar, just as he did every morning. "We made it," he murmured. She looked across the room at Nova and the twins, laughing, building towers of blocks. Warm sunlight spilled across the floor. "Yes," she whispered, "we did. Some stories begin in darkness, but they can still end in light. Sometimes the people meant to protect us become the very ones we must survive. But strength is not born in comfort. It is forged in the moments that break us. And the ones who rise from that kind of darkness do not return the same. They return unshakable. And even after everything, they can still choose to end in light. Stay safe. Stay aware. Stay unshakable. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more stories about resilience, protection, and survival. And if you believe darkness does not get the final word, share this story with someone who needs that reminder. On the screen are 2 life stories that I highly recommend. Thank you for staying with me on this emotional journey. See you in the next life story.